pencil. Yes, yeah. It's hard copy. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so please be courteous and try and print it as best as you can. I know handwriting isn't a big deal anymore, but it does need to be legible. Yeah.
Is this slide going to be on camera?
Well, we just walked through it, but I appreciate you came in late, so I will also share this review PowerPoint, right? I'll put it on an announcement via Canvas. Trigger warnings for students, etc. And I thought, this quote is intriguing from Thatcher, right? Way back when, in 1987, he made a statement that I think freaked people out, but essentially said, there is no such thing as society.
Can you hear me?
1 second.
Sorry?
No, it's just the guest is here.
And, I think people saw this as part of her nature and why she was called the Iron Lady. But she wanted to clarify her position, and I think it's worth us thinking about, especially in our role as public writers and informing people, and what she wanted to get across. And I'm not saying I agree with her, but that there is no such thing as society. There are individual men and women, and there are families, and no government can do anything except through people, and people must.
That good? My background is kind of whack. Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay.
In my Sounded like she was.
I'll chime you in right after the professor.
She was
How's my angle? How's the camera angle? Is it okay?
telling these communities. the same lawyer.
Oh,
They
yeah.
both hired the same guy to. Oh yeah. They got the same guy to go after their bosses in a lawsuit. So Gina, what do you think is the importance of these two firings?
I mean,
Yeah.
That and it's led to so much harm that it's a big deal to me, especially after him being exposed for not actually believing what he was saying.
Let me ask you this. He says a lot of horrible things online. Does he become more or less repugnant knowing he didn't even believe in what he was saying? He seemingly was just saying it for ratings. More?
Clickbait.
There's a higher incentive
The-
And that he's doing it just for money. So in other words, he's even okay. So even though his ideology is hateful, it's even worse if his ideology is simply money.
Yes. Okay.
Matt, you were gonna add.
I think it kind of just highlights like a bigger issue that we have with like mainstream media or like television news, broadcast television.
Oh yeah, this is.
I think it really shows the problem is that these individuals that are the figures of both that Levin, Tucker Carlson. I think it shows that there's a larger influence happening at the corporate level that's affecting the information that we all get on the consumer level.
Okay, what is that issue at the corporate level?
I think that the issue is that, well, like with Tucker Carlson, I think the issue was like he didn't agree with a lot of the stuff that he was preaching, and he had a career and a reputation that he had to keep, contributing to. He couldn't just call it there and walk away. So obviously he didn't honestly share his perspectives with his audience, and at a point it was really Tucker Carlson. It was Fox. Tucker Carlson speaking.
Okay.
I think that happens with all levels of news at all different levels. It's just that we don't know on the consumer level, like the backdoor conversations that we have. And I
Ooh.
think sorry.
No, it's good.
I think like stuff like Project Veritas kind of shows like on both ends that there's corruption happening in backdoor conversations that are going to have huge repercussions on the public, and we don't even know the entirety of like the reason why.
Okay, and it has turned out that both Rupert and Lachlan didn't like Carlson and didn't agree with him, but he was making them $77 million a year and did not want to yank them, even though particularly Lachlan really hated Tucker.
Yeah.
And that's scary to think that News Corp is essentially owned by a family. So all this world of information is just coming out of the brain trust of these three guys. Rupert, Lachlan, and the other side.
So can I just say, no matter what, just being on the back end of that, most scripted stuff is already is geared towards the quote unquote word entertainment. So although you have valid information there's an entertainment spectrum that a producer is pulling from to actually get a market pull of what masses is going to take to. So it already took a case study out on you guys of what is a very emotional to the community anyway. So what's for that corporation, what's paying more money at the time than those sponsors? They hit those sponsors on the back end. Then the producer goes back, looks at the information that the writer is researching. They edit that, bring that to the senior editor, then bring it back to the teleprompter. Then at the teleprompter, the correspondent truly is not really reading off of what his thoughts would be of the story. He's reading exactly what the corporation is telling him to read, because the advertisers Jerald's online right here waiting. He can tell you directly what this whole thing is really truly about, because he's been a writer for over 20 years, literally 20 plus years. That even if you write that information down, they'll look at your information depending on how much they're paying you. You get what I'm saying? In this case, Don Lemon and Tucker Carlson, those are heavy major correspondents for those corporations. And now, depending on who was making more money at the time, should we yank him? First of all, Don Lemon was on the whole lot, his own personal show before he was yanked to go to the daytime. So you already knew that they was ready to, okay, let's go from red flag one. He said something that we didn't agree with. Let's bring him to the forefront of everything, because in the daytime, you quote unquote can't really be opinionated. You have to really go on a scripted format, because this is the daytime and everybody feel like importance. And when it comes to stock market, advertising, and what's in the media is being utilized for daytime TV. So you can't really have your personal views there. Then
You touched on it right at the beginning. It's demographic research.
exactly.
Fox found that when Tucker originally said, "Hey, Trump lost, Biden won," it's bad, but okay, we got to live with it. His ratings dropped. So immediately, the next day, he came back on with a conspiracy theory that there was voter fraud. Right?
Okay.
So you're doing a demographic marketing. Gina is into the world of wrestling. At some point, are we going to have to make a change? Like they were World Wrestling Federation, then they became World Wrestling Entertainment. If Joanne used the word entertainment, has news now become entertainment?
So that suing component, they use the word entertainment, so they know this is just for the consensus of entertainment. Don't take us that seriously. So when the court of law happens, they say, listen, this is for our viewers. Our viewers love this type of content. We're entertainment based. This is not credible information. So
like this was the issue with boxing for a while, right?
Right.
So many people thought boxing was fixed and fraudulent that they had to try and clean up their act because unlike wrestling, they don't pretend to be entertainment. They act like these are real sports competitions and hence are gambled on. But if they're fake and they're fixed, well, now you have fraud, right? So now the news is almost like, well, if I'm up there and this is an opinion show, or I'm just speaking my mind, well, if I'm not factual, it isn't dangerous.
Right.
But of course it is.
Very dangerous.
So who else spoke on this? Oh, well, Joanne, all right, well, you already helped forward. James. Oh, James, you covered both Tucker and Don. Do you feel any parallel between these two guys, even though politically and socially or whatever, they're on different ends of the spectrum?
It was a little bit more so interesting how it kind of matched up and felt, because they actually pointed, I can't remember if it was the Lemon article or the Cross article that pointed out. It felt like sort of a transition period from the Trump era, where there was like at the level of like argumentative news telling from both sides. Yeah. Because they were kind of the champions of like that whole like fight of it all. Yeah. And so I'm just like, it just made me curious of like how is this era going to transition, if it does, if they're going, if they're a lawyer. Doesn't do anything on how does this new transition, especially regardless of results of Trump's trial, like how does this transition and how does this actually bring forward the entertainment politics of it? Okay. That's the thing. Because it's like because Lemon and Carlson were both notorious for good or for bad, depending on which side you went from, for being very argumentative, especially with the people they brought on their show.
Yeah. And people like to see that confrontation. Yes. There's the entertainment value, right?
Yes, it was giving very WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So that's where it's like, I'm not, well, I don't personally think it's going to know who has ever been before, like a CEO or something.
I'm about to bring you in now. Can you hear me?
Sometimes women are taking over those positions from controversial figures, or they have to actually like fix everything that's very difficult that was broken.
Jerald, can you hear me? Put on your speaker.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. Um. Okay, we good. Perfect right here. Thank you for your patience, sir. Appreciate you very much for coming on.
No doubt.
This is writing for the media. We've been working for a little while in the semester to well, you can turn me down. Turn me down. 'Cause- you can turn it down. But turn it down just this this is Jerald Hoover, uh, actor, author, filmmaker, and how's it going, brother? How's everything?
Sports journalist. I was
Sports
covering the
journalist. Excuse me. Sports journalist. Um, it's been we've been actually actively in class, and we have been talking about all the current events that's been going on. But we want to get directly to you, and speaking about uh, my friend, my hero. Can you tell me a little bit about uh, the new film that's actually actively in pre-production now, and tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, my friend, my hero. Well, thank you for having me. I want to put that out there. I appreciate the gesture. Want me to come on. I find it an honor to be able to do something like that. My friend, my hero. The book itself is 40 years old. Right. When I started writing it, I was 17 and didn't have a desk, didn't have computer, typewriter, had nothing but an iron board, uh, pen and pencils, and a notebook. And I started writing this actual book. I started October 17th, 1983. It wasn't published until November of 1992. So it took 9 years from the thought to the
Yeah,
ultimate
it's kind of
ending.
interesting that I was reading a little bit about what you went through,
Mhm.
and it was funny with that. I really read into that the you didn't really say it was like a racism thing, no, in the '80s, but they really was talking about how you were not on the list,
It
and
wasn't right for it wasn't right for their list. I understand.
yes,
Marketing.
so they kept
Yeah,
blaming it that you weren't
you're
on
right.
the list
Yeah.
after 8 years of rejection. What made you stay in the game and respond to that with the public, producing your own
The publishers.
scripted
Right.
series, and now it's about to be a film.
the book, because I believed in the book. When
Right.
I even wrote it by hand, I never forget my first draft that I wrote by hand. I had joined my friend in high school a club called the Literary Society, right? And they had English teachers that worked with students after school on Fridays, and I came as a guest and presented my draft, and it blew the teacher away, right? And they thought it was a true story, and they just thought it was powerful. And I just wrote, what I thought was a good story, was a decent story, and they went crazy over it. So from there, I started believing that it can be a story. Now, once I got it typed and got it manuscript form, was sending it out, even though I was getting rejections, the rejections didn't say the book was trash or it wasn't good, or no one said get up another hobby. In fact, every rejection letter I got praised how good the book was, how well written it was, how timely it was. I mean, they gave me all sorts of positive accolades. But for some reason, like you mentioned, that third paragraph would say, "Unfortunately, it's not right for our list. Not right for our list. Not right for our list." Now I knew the book was good, so even though they rejected me, I still would tweak it up a little bit, touch it up a little bit, and send it out. So I wouldn't necessarily rewrite the whole thing, but I would go through it and touch it up a bit, kind of put some, like, change the curtains if you would, and send it back out. I knew it was a good book. I knew the story was good because I felt it in my spirit and my soul. The fact that it wasn't getting published, it would get rejected. Evidently, it didn't stop me because I kept doing it. But that's because I believed in it so much. And then also, I saw myself being a motivational speaker, even though I was a terrible stutterer at the time. I stuttered really, really bad as a child, young man. I mean, really bad. I mean, I couldn't tell you how bad I stuttered. It was really bad. Even now to this day, when people see me speaking in public or hear me on radio or television or even a platform like this, they're like, "Yo, you don't stutter all the time," because I get locked in for some reason. I just get locked in, and but I knew that me writing was a purpose. So the books became published. A black author took a chance on me. I'll never forget. He said, "If you can promise me that you can sell 500 copies, I'll print up 1,000." I'm like, wait a minute. You promise? I mean, I made him put that in writing because I need that to be for certain because I knew what I can do. And he gave it to me in writing. And it's funny, when I got the letter, I didn't open it for like 2 days. I think I got it on a Tuesday. I didn't open it until Thursday because I was so used to getting the rejection letters. I'm thinking like he changed his mind or whatever, but no, it said what he talked about. So I went to work. All right, I lived in the projects. We have 5 buildings that have, and that's what the story actually took place too. 5 buildings that had 100 units in it. I belong to a big church. I have a big family. Even though I stuttered, I'm not a shy person. I'm not afraid to ask for help. Long story short, within a 3 or 4 months period, I sold 975 copies. So I went well beyond that 500 he talked about. I sold basically 1,000. The reason why I said 975 because he gave me 25 for promotional items. So I didn't sell those, but I basically sold 1,000 copies within like 3 or 4 months. I knew then I had something. And then what really gave me the confidence was then when people read the book, even though the cover doesn't look nearly what it looks like now, it wasn't about the cover. It was about what the content said. And so I started getting the books in schools, even looking the way it did, early '90s. And I remember WBLS had me on radio, so I was getting play. I was getting newspaper play. Now we didn't have these platforms that we have now, but I was getting a lot of buzz, and some of the buzz was the fact that I persisted so long. I went almost 10 years from inception to conception, if you would, or conception to inception, having the book published, and I felt good about myself, of course, but it wasn't even about just the message; it was the fact that I stuck with it. So that became a good message and a good starting point for young people. If you start something, finish it, regardless of what hurdles are there. And one thing led to another. I wrote another book, and then another book, and then all of a sudden, people were telling me, I should give my book to Spike Lee and all that kind of stuff because people were saying it should be a movie. So I'm like, well, I like Spike, and I know Spike because I'm a sports writer for the Knicks. And I was like, I like Spike, but Spike does a lot of MFers and this, yeah, that's his style. He does a lot of cursing and stuff, and I don't have any profanity in my book or in my script. So I took a screenwriting course, tried to master it as much as I can, and I wrote my own script. And from there, I started putting things together. One thing led to another. Then I started, trying to chase funds and different things of that nature. And I met you, over the course of time. And as you said, now we're in pre-production and looking to make a solid film out of this summer. I can't hear you. I think you're on mute. Are you on mute? I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Traditionally, how? Yeah, no, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So traditionally, how hard is it to get into the industry of journalism, not only in New York City during that time, with the same dream of being an author and being able to break it? Because so let me get this straight. Around 17 years old, you broke that first book,
Yeah.
right?
Sorry about
So
that.
how hard was it to be able to be in corporate America, breaking into the author industry, and at the same time being a journalist?
Oh, it was extremely hard because black writers, young black writers weren't in vogue. You know what I mean? And you can tell that now when you remember we talk about the list when they would say on the right file list. That list meant they didn't think young black boys were going to buy my book, or they didn't think black Americans were going to buy my book or read my book. How I knew that was I started going to bookstores, and I'm looking at bookstores, and I'm not seeing anybody with my face on it. Right? I remember I went to a bookstore, B. Dalton, and they had a big young adult section. I saw one book with a black face on it, and that was a book written by the late great R.C. Davis. I remember this. I remember the title because I bought it. But I actually bought it, but it was one book I bought it. It was called Just Like Martin, and they had wrote it was about a story about a young Martin Luther King. It was fiction, but it was a nice story. I might still have the book somewhere, but that's when I knew what that list meant. They didn't think black boys read my book. Now my book isn't for black boys only. It's not for black girls only. It's not for no one particular race in particular. It's just that a black man wrote the book. It's like a white man wrote Moby Dick. All right. So you write what you're familiar with. I mean, why would I write a book about white America and I'm not white? That wouldn't have made sense, especially a first time writer. So I wrote what my experiences was as a black young man, and for some reason it was it wasn't I won't say frowned upon. It wasn't accepted. So I had to go through that, and I got to admit I don't think it shook my confidence too much. I mean I got frustrated, but obviously I didn't give up. I kept doing it. So I believed in it, and I knew it would work. Now the journalism part came when my book was already published. I was already established as a writer. My agent, my literary agent at the time, he didn't know I was a big sports fan or had the knowledge that I have about sports, insights and different things of that nature. So we had a talk one day. We are coming from a business meeting, and I was dropping him off at his office. And what should have been a 45-minute ride, drop off, or what have you, ended up being like a 3.5 hour conversation. 3.5 hours. And he didn't know again that I knew sports the way I did. This was in 1998, 99, and he said, "Look, I know someone that is looking for a writer for the New York area to cover the Knicks and the Nets." Now this is new, and this man had this literary this sports magazine all across the nation. Right, he had writers in Seattle, L.A., D.C., you name it. He just had writers all over the country. He didn't have anybody in New York, which was crazy. And so by chance, my agent contacted the guy and said, well, I have somebody that be interested. So he asked me to write up a tryout story, and I blew him away. I crushed it. And he said, you're hired. And my first assignment was covering Michael Jordan, his comeback with the Wizards. Not with the Bulls, with the Wizards. I think that might have been 99, 98, 99. That was my first assignment. That's when I broke into the industry of sports media, sports writing, and from there I've been doing it ever since. I even tried to retire, but the Amsterdam News hit me and asked me. First, they asked me to do 25 Nick games this year, and I agreed. I didn't do quite 25, but I did several. And then they asked me would they could I cover the Brooklyn Nets full time, next year. So I covered the playoff games, and now I'll be the beat writer for the Brooklyn Nets. I mean that's gonna be kind of weird because I'm a Knicks fan as well, but my profession will be to cover the Brooklyn Nets. Hey, my thing is I'm in the arena, and that's a beautiful thing to be in the arena because you make a lot of contacts when you're there, and having a badge, a credential, press credential is power. Not you don't go to an ego thing, but you can go in certain places that the average person can't, and you're able to see certain people like stars and everything else, and kind of nudge up to them a little bit. So I made it work for me, and that was funny because when the man when my brother called me out of retirement, he said, he said, who you can cover the game, but do what you do. He was talking about me network and everything. He said, you can go do what you do, like you know how you do. So I was like, okay, not a problem. So but sports journalism is good, and writing for the Amsterdam News is a different experience than what I'm used to because I was able to write what I want to write, come up with my own headline and everything else, and gets published. Now I write it, and it goes through an editing process, and they keep 70% of what I write, but they may rechange something. So I had to get used to that. I had to get used to it, and I can't be uh, as comical as I am when I was with Black Athlete. Black Athlete Network, Black Athlete Sports Network is the company that I work for. That's what I broke into them. I broke in with them. I worked for them for about 20 years, and now I'm with Amsterdam News. But yeah, it's been a wonderful experience. I met Stephen A. Smith. I know him. I've actually even brought him to my church in the Bronx. Um, I know Chris Broussard. I know quite a few people. You meet people when you're in the industry, and when you write and you publish things, they can check you out. Like matter of fact, my story dropped today. What I did with the Nets over the weekend because it's a weekly. The Amsterdam News is a weekly, but I think it's one of the oldest black newspapers in America. Definitely in New York area, and it's like the Black New York Times. That's why I said I can't cut corners the way I would in another type of uh, um, newspaper. So I can't use humor the way I normally would do it, but it's okay. It made me a better writer, so I was able to adapt.
So this is my funny question: how do you get a chance to speak Korean and teach? When did you get a chance to, with all of that, to teach Korean
Well, no,
at
well,
the
no.
American Heritage Foundation?
Okay, well, here's the thing. This is weird. What the Lord did this because I ain't doing it on my own. So in 2014, 2014, I believe it was, I got hired by the Korean American Institute, KAI, and they had students come from Korea that they needed me to help teach um, uh, business English, what have you. So I didn't have to speak Korean. They were good. You know what I mean? A lot of them spoke English, or there was an interpreter. So that was in 2014. It was a 4 to 6 weeks program. It was really nice, really intense. Then in 2015, I went to Dominican Republic for a film project. But some kind of way, a professor from the University of Americano, because right across from where I was staying at, found out that I was in the area. So he had me come lecture every Tuesday to his class. Now I'm there for a film project for 30 days. I was there for 30 days. So he had me come to his class to sort of teach. Then I was in Belize and I lectured at the University of Belize. Yeah, I lectured there to the basketball teams. But then in 2016, I went to Beijing, went to China, and I taught there. And it was an amazing experience. I'm still in contact with those children too. Well, they're not children, but I'm still in contact with them. And that was in 2016. So I didn't have to necessarily learn different languages. Now, when I was in Dominican Republic, I had to use my phone to interpret to people, but I navigated. I got through it, and I tell everybody, if you have a dream, and this is so important, Jay. My dream started again writing on an ironing board. Okay, I had nothing to write with. I mean, in other words, I didn't have a the typewriter computer and everything. Nothing to get it published with. But my dream was to become a writer, and I did it. And to become a writer, I became a adjunct professor. As a writer, I became an adjunct professor. I became a sports writer. I became a filmmaker. I became a documentarian. I became uh, a professional development person where I facilitate workshops. Motivational speak. I mean, all that stuff that I was able to name, and that came from just writing a book when I was 17 by hand. So the moral of the story is that it doesn't matter how small you start or where you start, just start because you never know where the end game is. And I'm still on the journey, so I haven't stopped. But when I think about things, I'm like, if this wasn't for My Friend My Hero, me writing that book, I'm not doing any of this. Even the job I have now with Job Corps, that translated into certain things, and all of a sudden, boom. So you never know what seed you're planting by planting that seed, right? And what I mean by that is the thought, the action, and the follow through. Just do it, and don't worry about where I'm gonna get the money, where I'm gonna get this. Just move. You know what I mean? Just start moving. And I was on a broadcast yesterday, and one of the things I was saying was when you move, the universe moves out the way. It just start when you start moving at the appropriate time. Somebody somewhere is gonna connect with you, and it may not be a family member. It may not be somebody that looks like you. It may not be somebody that's the same sex or race or creed or religion as you. It may not be that. They might not even have the same likes and dislikes from a relationship standpoint. But let it be. Matter of fact, the other day I'm riding coming from Nick game on my way to see my cousin um, that's in the hospital. I have an older cousin that's in the hospital, had a stroke. So I'm driving down Atlantic Avenue, and I wanted gas. I needed gas, or I could have got gas. So I wasn't at E, but I just said, let me get some gas now before I get on the highway or whatever. So there was one gas station I saw, looked at the price. I wasn't scared off, but I said, let me find something different. So I didn't stop there. Went to another gas station, pulled in, see this woman washing her car. And I got the car and I tease her. And I'm like, you can wash mine next. She said, yeah, for $100. So we teased and kidded with each other. All of a sudden, we make connections. She's like, community director of a school. My books are in schools, Jay. So we don't made a connection, you know, and we do a lot of the same stuff. So between this year and next year, I'll be going to a school to do things. But that was just like a kind of by chance meeting. But that's how the universe, the divine order, kind of made things happen. I wasn't thinking about when I left the net game Saturday. I was thinking about my cousin. I wasn't thinking about meeting anybody at a gas station, and that thing just happened. And matter of fact, how I met your brother just happened to be on LinkedIn, uh, speaking to another lady who told me to go to, um, the outfit, the place he worked at, looking for somebody else. But it would happen to be Stacy who took over. One thing led to another, boom, boom, boom. Then I meet you. So you know how that thing works. It's when divine orders at play, it works itself out. But the key is, Jay, you got to start. You got to get out. You can't stay home playing video games all day. You got to move.
So tell me about the movie, man. The movie is set to come out, and we're shooting June is our target date. Tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about these
Well,
characters and
okay.
what
It's
people.
my friend, my hero. Say it again.
Tell people a little bit about the characters and what they were looking forward to seeing.
Okay. It's about my friend, my hero. The book. Of course, I did a lot of changes. That's the beautiful part about it. You see the movie and read the book, or read the book, see the movie. You're gonna see a lot of characters that are different. You're gonna see a lot of characters that are the same. The main core characters are the same. Bennett, Kirby, and Tara, Kathy, Mama, Dan, and Yvette. They're the same. It's about basketball, right? Bennett is a star ball player out of Mount Vernon, New York, and he's struggling through life choices and different things of that nature. And he has a girlfriend, Tara, and who is, how should I say, from the other side of town, where Bennett's from the projects, okay? And he had project ways or project situations because he was in the projects. Money was short. Uh, Different things were going on around him, crime and choices and different, that sort of stuff. He had to make decisions, and it's a fun thing. It's kind of like, well, your students wouldn't know about this, but it's kind of like Cooley High and Love and Basketball kind of married to each other, and, or Coach Carter, if you would, you can put that in there too. And it's a lot of fun. It's character driven. There's some comedy. There's a lot of drama. There's some mystery. Uh, there's some romance. There's a little bit of everything, and I did all that without profanity. And not that I'm preaching to don't have profanity and stuff, but I just didn't want profanity in my piece. I mean, is there a way that one or two words might slip in there from an actor? Probably, but I want to be a PG rating and even a G rating, so that a family of four can go watch the movie and learn some of the lessons that are in it. Also, able to drive customers to read my book, that'd be great too. So there's a win on all fronts. But it's gonna be fun. We're looking to have some really powerful basketball players in it because it's a basketball movie. It's character driven, but we want the basketball to be live. We want the basketball to look real. Like I never forget that movie Friday Night Lights. It's a football movie, but if you watch the movie, the football was out of this world. And then turns out they had some NFL players. I mean, even though they were older, they were playing on the team. You didn't see a lot of them because they were in uniform, or helmets, and different things of that nature. But you had some professional, and I be some. I'm not sure if college players are in it, but I know you had some professional players that were in the movie that played high school kids for the football action. And so the hits look good, the sound effects was good. I want My Friend My Hero to be a thing where a person dunks.
So I don't want to cut it too short, but we're gonna wrap this up. I know the students are about to leave, but to
Okay,
say, to show some medias and everything, and then we'll do a part two. Hopefully, you can get it there in person before everything shuts down.
sure, sure, love to. But yeah, I have a website, the Hero Book Series, and you can find me on All Things Media.
It's been real. All right.
Yes, sir. Of course. All right.